Money is just a promise, a shared belief that a piece of metal or a slip of paper holds value. But this is the story of what happens when that promise is broken. For centuries, the Roman denarius was the most trusted currency on earth, the literal silver backbone of the greatest empire the world had ever known. People built fortunes, paid armies, and funded dynasties with it. But the fall of Rome wasn't just about barbarians at the gate. It was an economic implosion, a cancer that started in the very heart of its treasury. This is the 2,000-year-old warning of how an empire destroyed itself by destroying its own money. Running an empire is expensive. By the 2nd century, Rome was stretched to its breaking point. The military demanded constant funding to defend thousands of miles of borders. Emperors needed cash for grand monuments and public works. The tax revenues simply couldn't keep up. So, they turned to a silent, insidious trick: debasement. Instead of raising taxes and risking revolt, they simply reduced the amount of silver in each coin. Under the first emperor, Augustus, the denarius was nearly 95% pure silver. It was real money, heavy and true. But by the reign of Caracalla, it was down to 50%. A century later, during the crisis of the 3rd century, the coin that built an empire was a bronze slug with a thin silver wash. It contained less than 5% silver. It looked like money, but it was a lie. The people weren't fools. They could see the coins were lighter, the color was off. They understood they were being cheated. And as the government pumped millions of these worthless coins into the economy, the inevitable happened. Prices exploded. The cost of a measure of wheat, a soldier's daily ration, skyrocketed. The wages paid to a legionary, once enough to support a family, became worthless almost overnight. Merchants began refusing to accept the debased currency, demanding gold or reverting to the ancient system of barter. A farmer would trade his grain for a blacksmith's tools, because at least the tools were real. Trust in the system, the promise of money, evaporated. Society itself began to fray. The moment money died, the Roman world began to die with it. This economic rot fueled a political firestorm. The period known as the crisis of the 3rd century saw Rome descend into 50 years of anarchy. Emperors were assassinated in rapid succession, some reigning for only a few months. Civil wars tore the empire apart. In a desperate act, Emperor Diocletian issued his Edict on Maximum Prices in 301 AD. He fixed the price of over 1,000 goods and services, from eggs to labor, and declared that anyone who violated the edict would be put to death. It was a spectacular failure. You cannot command value by law when the money itself is worthless. A massive black market erupted. Official trade ground to a halt, and the shortages became even worse. Diocletian's law proved a timeless truth. A government cannot fix an economy it has already broken. So, how did ordinary people survive when their money was melting away? They adapted. They relied on strategies that feel surprisingly modern. Many began hoarding the older, purer silver coins of past emperors, a practice known as Gresham's law. Bad money drives out good. They refused to spend their real silver, using the worthless debased coins for taxes and daily transactions whenever possible. Barter became the backbone of local economies once more. Communities traded goods and services directly, cutting out the failed currency entirely. And those with foresight invested in real, tangible assets. They bought land, farms, jewelry, and livestock, anything that held intrinsic value, unlike the coins coming from the imperial mint. They understood that true wealth wasn't in a promise from the government, but in things you could hold in your hand. This Roman blueprint for collapse has been copied with terrifying precision throughout history. Look at the Weimar Republic in Germany after World War I, where people carted worthless notebanks in wheelbarrows just to buy a loaf of bread, paving the way for political extremism. Look at Zimbabwe in the 2000s, where inflation reached sextillions of percent and life savings were wiped out in a matter of days. And consider the United States. In 1971, the dollar was taken off the gold standard, severing its final link to a tangible asset. Since then, a slow but steady erosion of purchasing power, a quiet debasement, has been underway. The fall of Rome teaches us a brutal lesson. The barbarians at the gate are never as dangerous as the rot within the treasury. Inflation is not a bug, it is a feature. It is a silent tax, a way for a state to fund itself by stealing the value you have saved. The Romans thought they could cheat reality, and they paid the price with their entire civilization. Today, the world runs on promises, on currencies backed by nothing more than faith in the governments that issue them. The Roman warning echoes down through 2 millennia. When that faith is broken, the collapse that follows is not slow, it is sudden. And the question is, are we listening?